Hello, welcome guys. I hope you've done your exams well and you are relaxing right now. Then it will be a detailed review, and this review is purely based on my own opinion and my own first and foremost thing is this review is purely based on my own opinion and my own understanding of the question, and suggested answers may vary, but most of the answers, I think the most of the things in the exam law paper, especially law paper, it has come from the study mat itself, except for here and there a few things they have tried to confuse you. And second thing is, that's what I was telling. Those who are preparing for June 23 and December 23, please watch this review and understand what concepts are asked in the question, how the questions are coming in the exam. So you are better equipped to answer those questions and better able to understand. Those who have written the exam, you can understand what answers you should have written, solution, what concepts they have asked from there, and you can compare what answer you have written with the answer which I am giving right now. So, and I'll also tell you general view review of the paper. General review is that are saying the paper was average. Based on my understanding of the paper, I think the paper was average only because some of the questions they try to confuse you. Some of the questions are little bit above average for those students who have not studied the concepts deeply. And one more thing is, see, what they have done is they have asked questions from those corners of the chapters which the students tend to miss or tend to not study. But also there were few concepts from RTP, MTP. I'm telling concepts, not the question. Concepts from RTP, MTP have come in the paper. I'll show you which question from RTP has come, which question from MTP has come, so that you guys know that MTP, RTP concepts will come. Concepts or question also it can come, but this time they've asked only the concepts. So skip MTP, RTP if you're doing. Try to do at least 3 years of RTP and MTPs. And with that in mind, the general review, like I told, the paper was average. Some of them found it a little bit above average, and the paper was average. Marks they have asked from Indian Contract Act. They've asked for 22 marks. 22 marks questions came from Indian Contract Act. Imagine 22 marks is almost 30% of the paper is from Indian Contract Act. That should tell you how much weightage the Indian Contract Act has. And Sale of Goods Act has come for 16 marks and LLP for 5 marks. And those people who are not studied LLP, I'll show you what kind of situation they would be in if you have not studied LLP. And the question which came from the LLP, no, it was so easy. The question was so easy. Even the sub question along with the LLP, that question has come. No, even that sub question was very easy. So those who have done the LLP properly, even just scan through the basic concept of LLP, they would have been able to write the answer. And even if you have not studied LLP also, those students could have also written the answer. I'll show you how. Okay, in this review, I'll tell you how they could have written the answer. So you shouldn't have skipped the LLP, and I was shouting through my lungs that RTP, MTP, and LLP chapter, please don't skip. I was in my even my tips video, I told, even in MTP, RTP video, I've told so many times. Those who have seen my video, they would have studied and when they would have written the paper well, I believe. Okay, now coming to the next partnership act, what they have asked is partnership they have asked for 16 marks. They have asked for 16 marks. See, for partnership 16 marks and sale of goods act for 16 marks they've asked. Next, coming to companies act, they've asked for 13 marks. If you ask me the tricky questions from which part they came, no. One case study which was little bit tricky from sale of goods act, and contract act, obviously a tricky question was there, and companies act, I don't call it tricky, but yeah, it was tricky. Question one it has come. No, it was tricky. Question 1B it has come. So now let's jump into the paper review. Then I'll tell you in the end what kind of strategy you should have done for this paper and how you should have written the paper. Now let's go into the discussion. Question 1A. What does it say? X agrees to pay Y 1 lakh if Y kills Z. To pay Y, X borrows 1 lakh from W, who is also aware of the purpose of the loan. Y kills Z, but X refuses to pay. X also refuses to repay the loan to W. Explain the validity of the contract between X and Y and X and W. You have to mark the important keywords in the question which are suggesting what the question requirement will be. See, in this question, what happened is important keywords is he paid the money to Y to kill Z. So you should from that only you should come to know what this question is referring to, which provision it is referring to. From Indian Contract Act, it is referring to illegal agreements. And next important part of the question is this is the important, very important part. W was also aware of the purpose of the loan. W was aware of the purpose of the loan for which X is taking. The answer will be this. This is based on my opinion and suggested answers may vary. Okay, please don't jump on my back if the answers vary. But generally, this will be the answer. Okay, it's not that my answer is wrong. This will be the answer, but slight differences will be there between suggested answers and mine. Okay, based on my opinion and suggested answers may vary. Okay, this was asked for 4 marks. The answer for that. And I've asked you, I even marked the important keywords in the answer which should be present in your answer for the evaluator give you marks. This paragraph is given in your module. In contract module is there, no? There in types of contract it was there. This illegal contract paragraph. You can go and check if you want. I've taken from that paragraph. Okay, illegal contract. So this is contract is illegal contract which is the law forbids to be made. The court will not enforce such contract. The court will not enforce such contract. You have to write what illegal means. It will not be enforced by law. Law forbids it to be made. But this is the important part of the answers which the students should have written and should be part of your answer for the evaluator to give you marks. This is the important part. But also connected contracts. Even the connected contracts court will not enforce. So in this case, what was the connected contract? That he took the loan from W to give to Y to kill Z, right? The loan which he took, no, the contract for taking the loan, that agreement is also void. It is also not enforceable in law. It is not enforceable by court. Also, the connected contracts. All illegal agreements are void, but all void agreements are not illegal. This was not necessary to write, but I just wrote it because it will add weightage to your answer. Okay, it will increase it will add extra, like what do we call icing on the cake, no, like that it will be. So all illegal agreements are void, but all void agreements are not illegal. Despite this, there is similarity between them is that in both the cases, they are both void ab initio and cannot be enforced by law. This line you could have skipped. Anyways, a contract that is immoral or opposed to public policy or illegal in nature. This was opposed to public policy. This line also, this word also should be there. It was opposed to the public policy or illegal in nature. And according to section 2G, you need not write section 2G, it's fine. An agreement not enforceable by law is void. This contract to murder someone is not enforceable by law, which is void, which is said in section 2G of the Indian Contract Act. Agreement not enforceable by law is void. And next, coming to next point, the act has various factors that agreement may be considered as void agreement. And one of these factors is unlawfulness of the object and consideration for the contract. In this case, the object of the contract was to kill someone, which is illegal, which is punishable in law, so it is against law. So the object itself is unlawful in this case. So unlawfulness of the object and consideration for the contract, even the consideration is illegal and it is unlawful. So you should write unlawfulness of both the object and consideration of the contract are unlawful. Illegality of the contract which makes it void. The contract is immoral and opposed to public policy. This should be there and are illegal in nature. This should be there. And even the connected contracts, this so it should be definitely there in your answer. Law forbids it, it will not be enforceable. All illegal agreements are void. And as per section 2G, those agreements which are not enforceable by law are void. Section 2G says which is not enforceable by law is void. That this line also should be there, it's fine if you have not written, but these things should be there and lawfulness of the object and consideration of the contract. Okay, that is one point. Next part coming to that is called collateral agreements. Even the collateral agreement, it is not necessary the agreements collateral to void agreements may be void. For void agreements, it may not be void. For collateral agreements, it may be valid. But for agreements collateral to illegal agreements are always void. This is the important part, should be present in your answer. Agreements which are collateral to agreements, illegal agreements which are collateral to illegal agreements are always void. They are always void. It should be there in your answer. So you can explain in instant case what has happened in this case, correlate the provision with the question, correlate this provision with the question, and you can write the answer as agreement between X and Y is void as per the above mentioned provision. Since it was illegal to begin with, it cannot be enforced by law. You can write some more fewer sentences if you want, taking from the provision, like it is opposed to public policy, which is illegal in nature. Okay, and that is one between X and Y. Between X and W, this second part of the question was requirement of the question is between X and W, what is the validity of the contract? That is also void, since the main agreement is also main agreement is void. Even the connected contract is also void of an issue. This much if you write, I think will give you the marks properly. You can score well. This was the answer for the question 1A. Number 2, this was bit tricky question if you ask me, because in this case you have read the question already. What has happened? There is manufacturer of toy approached MNO Private Limited for supply of the raw material worth 1,50,000. He was manufacturer, so he went to one company which supplies raw material for the manufacture of toys, for taking credit. For credit, we wanted raw materials for 1,50,000. He was offered credit period of 1 month. Mr. R went. What happened is Mr. R went to company prior to the due date and met Mr. C. Prior to the due date, he went to company and met Mr. C, employee at the billing counter, and who convinced the farmer that the payment can be made to him as the billing cashier is on leave. And this line is very, very important. I'll mark the important part of the important keyword of the question, like I said, and what is the requirement of the question also I'll mark C. See how you should analyze the question, how you should answer the question. This is how you should analyze the question first. When in law, what matters is how the person analyzes the question, how he figures out what the question is trying to say, from where this which provision it is referring to. Figuring out that is the important key to solving the case study for a law. Okay, now next part of the question is Mr. R paid the money and was issued a signed and sealed receipt by Mr. C. After lapse of the due date, Mr. R received a recovery notice from the company for payment of 1,50,000. He informed the company that he has already paid the above amount, and being an outsider, he had genuine reasons to trust Mr. C, who claimed to be an employee, and had issued him a receipt. The company filed a suit against Mr. R for non-payment of dues. Discuss the fate of the suit and liability of Mr. R towards the company as on current date in conscience with the provision of the Companies Act 2013. Would your answer be different if the receipt under the company seal was not issued by Mr. C after receiving the payment? So I read the entire question. Now I'll mark the important part of the question. In this case, what happened is Mr. R, the toy manufacturer, went to a company for raw materials of 1,50,000 for on credit basis. He got it, and but what happened is Mr. R went to a company prior to a due date and met Mr. C, an employee. He was an employee, Mr. C, at the billing counter, who convinced the farmer. Means he convinced Mr. R that the payment can be made to him as the billing cashier is on leave. This entire sentence is important. That he convinced the Mr. R that the payment can be made to him as the billing cashier was on leave. Money, he paid the money and was issued a signed and sealed receipt. He was issued a signed and a sealed receipt. This is also important part of the question. After the lapse of the due date, he got recovery notice from the company saying that you need to pay 1,50,000. But he told that he had already paid the amount. Being an outsider, he had genuine reasons to trust Mr. C, who claimed to be an employee, and issued him a receipt. This is also important part of the question. So now coming to requirement of the question, you should have figured it out. This question is referring to doctrine of indoor management for outsiders. This line itself should tell you where this question is referring to. Being an outsider had genuine reasons to trust Mr. C, who had claimed to be an employee, and issued him a receipt. This is based on the concept of doctrine of indoor management. Okay. Now coming to next part, requirement of the question. What is the requirement of the question? We have to tell fate of the civil suit which the company filed against Mr. R, right? Ability of Mr. R towards the company on current date. And also if the answer would vary if the receipt under company seal was not issued by Mr. C after receiving the payment. At least you would have figured out the conclusion from reading this question. Even if you don't know where the provision is from, even if you don't know the Companies Act, at least from reading the question, you could have at least figured out the conclusion part. Why, I'll tell you. If I was answering this question and I didn't know where the provision was, I would have at least figured out the conclusion. How? I'll tell you. See, what happened is Mr. Arno, he paid the money and he received the receipt from Mr. C, which was signed and sealed. Company seal was also put on that. So that shows that he had authority to sign and issue the sealed receipt. Okay. Even the company seal he has put. Or can presume that the internal affairs of the company are working proper. So you can say that the fate of the suit is the suit will lapse and the liability of Mr. R will not, there will be none. No liability of Mr. R. Since he was given a receipt, he was issued a receipt, he had no reasons to inquire or no reason to question the authority since he was given a receipt which was on company seal. So he trusted the person who trusted the employee. And one more thing, he was an employee at the billing counter. So he had no reason to not trust, to inquire, or to doubt the authority of Mr. C. Since he had given him a receipt, the suit will lapse. There is no liability of Mr. R. But if the receipt and the company seal was not issued by Mr. R after receiving the payment, that means it shows that he did not have the authority to issue the he did not have the authority to take the payment from Mr. R. That should have raised a suspicion, and Mr. R should have inquired about the authority of Mr. C that time if he had not received the receipt. That much conclusion I would have written if I didn't know what is the provision is. For 4 marks, okay, remember. Don't write everything you know about doctrine of indoor management. That is a big mistake and you'll be losing out on time, wastage of time, and you'll not get any marks more than what is given allotted here anyways. So that's why you should plan accordingly. 4 marks it's given. Fate of suit we have to tell, liability of Mr. R, and if a receipt was not given, it was not issued, what will be the case? Now I'll discuss it, and again, like I said, this is based on my view, on my understanding of the question, my analysis, and your management. The what answer you should have written based on, this is based on doctrine of management. This is for 4 marks. Explain a bit about this in 2 lines or so. You should have written about the doctrine of management in 2 lines or so, the provision. This much I've given, this much I've given, but you need not write this much. You can write only 2 lines, it's enough, more than enough. But I've given this so that the students who are watching for June 23 or December 23, those students will also benefit from this video. So that's why I'm doing this. Next, coming to the answer, this is based on doctrine of indoor management of the Companies Act. Management, the outsiders dealing with the company are supposed to have satisfied themselves regarding the competence of the company, to satisfy themselves about the competence of the company, and to enter into proposed contracts are also entitled to assume that as far as the internal compliance procedures and regulations by the company is concerned, everything has been done properly. This much, this line should be there. At least you should have written this. The one which I have given in the italics, no, those things are important. The internal, so the outsiders are entitled to assume that as far as the internal compliance to procedures and regulations by the company is concerned, everything has been done properly. You can write this in your own sentences, but compliance to procedures and regulations of the company is concerned, internal compliance to procedures and regulations concerned, you can assume that they are in perfect, everything was done properly. At least you can write in your own sentence, but the compliance with procedure and regulations, that line, that wording should be there at least. And then coming to next part of the answer, they are bound to examine the registered documents of the company and ensure the proposed dealing is not inconsistent, but they are bound to do more. This line you need not write, it's fine. Okay. But this one is important. They are fully entitled to presume the regularity and compliance by the company with the internal procedures as required by the memorandum and articles. Thus, the doctrine aims to protect the outsiders against the company. It aims to protect the outsiders against the company. This line should be there. This is to protect the outsiders against the company. They are fully entitled to presume the regularity compliance by the company. Here, Mr. R can assume or presume that the regularity and compliance by the company based on how? Because he received a receipt? No, since it was given by the employee, he can presume that the regularity or the compliance by the company and internal procedures as required by the memorandum and articles. With the company seal also he gave. So, and this is one part you could have written only two lines like entitled to assume and this regularity and compliance and aims to protect the outsiders. If you write only three, four lines, it's enough. Next, coming to this important, this is the important part of the answer, suspicion of irregularity. The doctrine in no way rewards those who behave negligently when where a person dealing with the company is put upon inquiry, for example, where the transaction is unusual or not in ordinary course of the business. It is the duty of the outsider to make the necessary inquiry. He should make the necessary inquiry in case where it is not in the ordinary course of the business. You need to make necessary inquiry. And more thing, those who have skipped the company's act will be suffering right now because first question is compulsory and you should have written this answer, and the question came from companies act for 4 marks. Next is the circumstances surrounding the contract or suspicious, therefore invite inquiry. Where the circumstances surrounding the contract is suspicious and therefore invite inquiry. And suspicion should arise. Suspicion should arise, for example, from the fact that an officer is purporting to act in a matter which is apparently outside the scope of his authority. Mark this part as very, very important because this line should be there in your answer. This line should be there. This the officer is purporting to act in the matter in which apparently outside the scope of his authority. He is trying to purporting to act in the matter is apparently outside the scope of his authority. In this case, what happened is Mr. C is not the billing cashier. Billing cashier is on the leave. So he convinced Mr. R that the payment can be made to him. That the payment can be made to him. He convinced R that payment can be made to him. Billing cashier is on the leave. So that should suggest you that the authority, the officer is doing an act which is apparently outside the scope of his authority. That should have suggested that. Coming to back to our question, what is there is you should have written this much suspicion of irregularity, and this what I have told right now. This answer you should have written, and for conclusion, what should have written is the fate of the suit is lapse. The liability of Mr. Or is not there. Is liability of Mr. Or doesn't exist, but before writing all this, you have to write in the instant case and explain the case in a gist in small manner. You have to write like in 2 3 lines. You'll explain in the instant case what happened and you correlate with the provision, correlate the question with this provision you correlated, and you have to tell that in the given case the suit filed by the company doesn't stand, it will lapse because Mr. R had he had reasons to trust C because he had issued him a receipt. So he had reasons to trust Mr. C, and the liability of Mr. R will not arise in this case since he had received the receipt. So since he had received the receipt, which is with the company's seal, he had received it. No, that's why he has reason to trust that the company's internal procedure is working effectively. He can presume that he had genuine reason as an outsider. But if the receipt for second case, what happened is the receipt the company seal was not issued by Mr. C after receiving the payment. If the company with the if the receipt was not issued by Mr. C, that time Mr. R should be suspicious. He should inquire. He should ask questions. He should doubt should arise in his mind. Why the employee is not giving him the receipt for the payment which the payment he has made? Why that question? The why question should arise in his mind that time. So in second case, contract will become void. The contract means the payment which has done. No, this will become void, and that time the suit will be valid, and the liability of Mr. R will be there, and you will have to pay 1 lakh 50 again. Okay, that will be the answer to question number 2. So this is the answer for this entire case study. Some of the people would have found this case study a little bit tough, but those who have done case studies on indoor management, doctrine of indoor management, they would have found this mm, easier, not easier. I would say they would have understood the question and they would have able to write something better than nothing. Right? They would have been able to write something. So that's what I can tell you. I can discuss anything more than this. That's what the question was based on. Now coming to the C, question 1C. This was easy. You could have easily scored 4 marks here. What they are asking is essential elements. As I said, always mark the important keywords in the question. Essential elements regarding what? Sale of uncertain goods. Essential elements regarding sale of uncertain goods and its appropriation as per Sale of Goods Act 1930. What are the essential elements? This question was easy. It was a direct question from the study mat. Essential elements of sale of uncertain goods and its appropriation. But what happened is this sale of uncertain goods and appropriation. This question they have asked no. This answer is written little bit below the uncertain goods part. Answer is the explanation is there in the module. No, they have given it little bit below. So some of the students might have skipped this part, and this question it is directly from the module. But some students might have skipped this. They would have not seen this because since it is given little bit in the inside the uncertain goods part of the paragraph, in that they have given it inside in the module. It's very simple answer. The essential elements are first two lines you have to write like as appropriation of goods involves selection of the goods. Appropriation of goods means selection of goods, the intention of using them in the performance of the contract, and the mutual consent of seller and buyer. Intention of using them in the performance of the contract and mutual consent of buyer and seller. Sale of uncertain goods and appropriation. Appropriation means like that. Selection of the goods. Selection of the goods, intention of using them in the performance, mutual consent of seller and buyer. What are the essentials? Or there is a contract for sale of uncertain or future goods. See, even that you could have written as essential. The sale of the it is a contract for sale of uncertain or future goods, uncertain or future goods. This once I've marked in italics, those are the important keywords in the answer which should be present in your answer for the valuator. Okay, which should be there in your answer. The goods should conform with the description and quality. It should conform with the description and quality. It should be in deliverable state. Goods must be unconditionally appropriated to the contract either by delivery to a buyer or the carrier or the agent. Should be unconditionally appropriated. That is distinguished from the intention as from an intention to appropriate. The appropriation must be made by the seller with the assent of the buyer or the buyer with the assent of the seller. Either way, if seller with the assent of buyer or buyer with the assent of seller, the appropriation should have been made. Assent may be expressed or implied, and assent may be given either before or after appropriation. This much is the answer. And this in this also you need not write all these points. If you had written only 4 points, just it is sale of uncertain goods, it confirms description quality, liberal state unconditionally, or you could have written just this one express or implied or given either by before or after appropriation. Just 4 points you would have written, you would have given you 4 marks directly. What is the question? Explain the following statements in the light of the provisions of the Indian Contracts Act 1872. What they've asked is, see, this both these questions, no, this is from Indian Contract Act based on Section 25, both of this. And Section 25 is very, very important because as all of you would know, the Section 25 consideration, I hope you know that. This is based on Section 25 consideration, and Section 25 is very, very important. It has come so many times, even in MTP, RTPs, and previous papers. It has they've asked so many questions from this part, and students would have. I presume that students. I trust that you guys would have studied this Section 25 consideration, unit consideration. The unit is called consideration, and you would have went. Anyway, I'll discuss the answer now. The agreements made out of love and affection are valid agreements. One of the exception for the contract not having the consideration. This is one of the exceptions where it is mentioned in the Section 25 that it is a case where the contract is valid even if there is no consideration. That agreement is valid. I'll show the answer. Wait, see. This is based on Section 25. This question is based on Section 25 and consideration. General rule is that an agreement made without the consideration is void. But in every valid contract, consideration is very important, and the contract can only be enforceable when there is a consideration is there. However, Indian Contract Act contains certain exceptions to this rule. Agreement, though made without consideration, will be valid and enforceable. Even if it is made without consideration, it is valid and enforceable. As I told, this is one of the exceptions in the consideration. The natural love and affection as per section 25 conditions to be fulfilled as given in section 25 for natural love and affection. What is the conditions? Yes, this is the question which I was talking about, which came in, I don't remember, it came in MTP, I think. Yeah, it came in MTP. The concept came, not the question. Again, I'm repeating, the question came, the concept came, not the question. Agreement did not get registered, no, so it is not valid. So that's what the answer was for that question. And the concept what was there in the question, same concept is applicable here. Agreements made out of love and affection or valid agreements. This is so many times, so many ways, so many places they have asked. So you would have written on, I don't have to discuss this much. The parties must stand in near relationship with each other in writing and should be registered under the law. And a written and registered agreement based on natural love and affection between the parties standing in near relation, that is, to each other, is enforceable even without the consideration. That's all you have to write. That's all the answer. Promise to pay time board debt cannot be enforced. This is also based on section number 25. Promise to pay time board debt cannot be enforced. It cannot be enforced, but the answer is, I'll show you. Promise to pay time board debt. When the promise is in writing, signed by the person making it, or is authorized agent, is made to pay time board debt by limitation, it is valid without the consideration. I'm purposefully reading from the module. I've taken this paragraph from your module only I've taken this, and I'm marking the things because the answer which you will get, no get. These are the important points should be present in your answer. So that's why I'm marking from the module itself. I'm explaining from the module itself. Some of the students don't know what are the important keywords. Keywords should be present in the answer from the provision. Should be there. They just mug up. Even if you don't write as given here, if you have written even in your own sentences with these words, the value it will give you full marks. That's why. Full means maximum marks. So time barred when it is in writing, a promise is in writing signed by a person making it, or is authorized agent that pay, made to pay time barred debt by limitation. It is valid without consideration. It is valid even without consideration. Promise to pay time barred debt cannot be enforced. This statement is false. This statement is false. This statement is true. Agreements made out of love and affection or valid agreements is true. This is not enforceable is false. You have to write like this. The promise to pay time bar debt cannot be enforced is false. And you have to write the provision. This provision you have to write. Promise to pay time bar debt is still valid if it is in writing, signed by the person making it. Okay, like that. If this example you need not write, even if you write only these three lines, it's more than enough. And say false. Okay, you would have gotten full marks. And this is the important question about LLP. This is very easy question and very easy. And those students who have studied LLP just 20 pages, I was shouting so much in my video on how to write the law paper tips, not to skip this chapter. But if you have skipped it, it's your own fault. I can't do anything about that. It was very easy. I'll show you why. And one more thing, this question, even if you have not studied LLP also, you would have written the answer. I'll show you how. LLP and LLC. I didn't read the question right. I'll read the question. Wait. What the question is asking is, there is an LLP is a type of partnership in which the participants' liability is fixed to the amount of money they invest, whereas LLC, limited liability private public company, is a tightly held business entity that incorporates the qualities of the corporation and a partnership. They have even mentioned that as well, which you can use in your answers. Now, the above statement clearly elaborate the difference between LLP and LLC. So they basically asking the difference between a limited liability partnership and limited liability company. So what is the answer? This is the answer. The Regulating Act, the LLP Act, and the Companies Act. Even this could have been used as a difference. The which provision, which act is regulating those LLPs and companies. for LLP Act 2008, and for Companies Act 2013. This is why I shout that you should even read whenever you're writing answers or whenever you're reading about an act, always read like the Partnership Act 1932, LLP Act 2008, so Sale of Goods Act 1930, Indian Contract Act 1872. Like that, why I keep shouting is you see you can use even the which act it is regulating, you can use it. The LLP Act 2008 and Companies Act 2013 as one of the differences, and out of 5 marks, you would have given you 1 mark, just like that. See how easy it is. Members or partners, persons who contribute to LLP are known as partners, and who invest in the company are known as members. Internal governance structure. It is governed by the contract agreement between the partners. It is governed by agreement, and company is regulated by the statute. It is regulated by statute. And name of the LLP to contain limited liability partnership, LLP suffix. And for company, you know, it is limited or private limited. For companies, it is private limited, it is private limited. And members or partners. This is like, wait, I'll tell you. Number of members or partners. Minimum 2 members for LLP, and maximum there is no such limit. Just like partnership, there is no limit to a maximum number of members. Members of LLP can be individuals or body corporate through the nominees. Even the members of the LLP can be individuals or the body corporates through the nominees. Minimum 2 members are required. Maximum no such limit is there. And for private limited company, minimum 2 members, just like partnership, maximum 200 members. For public, minimum 7, maximum there is no limit, just like partnership. And members can be organizations, trusts, or another business form or individuals. Okay, for company. English, you should have remembered how many number of members. 2 members and no limit. And for private, it is 2 and 200. And for public, 7 and no limit. That's all. Then liability of the members or partners. Liability of the partner input, this it is saying itself in the name itself, title itself is there, limited liability partnership, limited liability. So you could have even used that as a difference. The liability of the partners is limited to the extent of the agreed contribution. In case of intention is fraud, in case of intention is fraud, it is limited to the extent of the agreed contribution. Agreed contribution will be there, no, it is limited to that. And liability of the member is limited to the amount of unpaid on the shares. Unpaid amount will be there on the shares, it will be that will be the liability. This difference, I know it is bit difficult to remember. It's fine if you couldn't remember. And the question was for 5 marks. 5 differences was more than enough among these 8 differences. Two more differences there. I'll read it. The business of the company managed by the partners, including the designated partners, authorized in the agreement. Management, who will manage see, management for partnership, LLP is for designated partners. You would have read everywhere. How many designated partners should be there? 2 designated partners. No, that is what minimum numbers. So designated partners authorized by in the agreement. Those people will be running the LLP. And affairs of the company will be managed by the board of directors. Will be obviously knowing those elected by shareholders. And minimum number of director designated partners, 2 designated partners. This is what I was showing. And private company, 2 directors, and public company, 3 directors. 2, 3. Okay, that's all finished. Even if you have not written, you couldn't write even this point. Management also you couldn't return if you can't remember, if you can't write. Liability also you would have, if you don't remember, right, you would have written these 5 points and you would have scored the marks. In these 8 points, you could have jumbled up however you want. You would have studied easily and you would have scored easily the 5 marks. These 5 marks, even I told LLP 5 marks will definitely come. 5 to 10 marks I told. 5 marks it came. See, came for 5 marks. So those students who have seen my video on the tips for outwriting law, in that I have told you to study LLP. This question also, this question 3B was a little bit tricky. This question was a little bit tricky, and this is the question which I was telling the Indian contractor. One tricky question had come. This is what, and I'll tell you where this it has come and what you should have written the answer. And first we'll discuss 3A. This was easy question and a direct question. Can a partner be expelled? Yes. If so, how? So when you're writing the answer, you should write, can a partner be expelled? Yes, a partner can be expelled. Then you should write the provision. This also carries marks, saying yes. Okay, that's why I keep shouting that to keep telling you guys to listen, to watch my videos, and to figure out how to write the answers. Anyways, which factors should be kept in mind prior to expelling a partner from the firm by the partners according to the provision of India Partnership Act 1932? So, what are the factors which the partner should keep in mind before expelling the partner from the firm? The other partner should keep in mind. This was a direct question from Partnership Act. See, it was also very easy and it was for how many marks? It was for 6 marks. You could have scored 6 marks. Anyways, so what answer is yes. A partner can be expelled provided yes. A partner can be expelled provided like this. You should write provided expulsion of partner provision. You should write expulsion of partner section 33. If you can remember, it's fine. If you don't remember, do not mention a wrong section. Expulsion of partner. A partner may not be expelled from the firm by majority of the partners, save in the exercise of the good faith of the powers conferred by the contract between the partners. What they are saying in these two lines is, if you can't understand, they are saying that a partner cannot be expelled from the firm by many of the majority of the partners, provided it is in order in provided it is in order to exercise the good faith of the powers which is there in the contract between the partners. In the partnership deed, it should have mentioned that they can expel a partner based upon the majority of the votes. By the majority partners, they can vote and decide if they want to expel a particular partner. That is in good faith. Expulsion between must have existed in a contract between the partners. So what they are telling is the power of the expulsion, no, it should have existed in the contract between the partners. In the partnership deed, it should have existed. In the partnership deed, so here the power of the expulsion should be in the partnership deed, and the power should be exercised by majority of the partners. Should be by the majority of the partners, and it should be exercised in good faith. All these 3 points should be there in your answer. If the person validator will check this, we will check these keywords. If it is there in your answer while giving marks, we'll check if majority of the partner, if it is done in good faith. And this is the factors should be kept in mind. This is the question is based on the second part of the question. If so, how is there? No, for that we answered. Factors to be kept in mind while expelling the partner. No, factors should be kept in mind prior to expelling the partner from farm by other partners. Prior to expelling, what are the points you should? What are the generally what you should keep in mind when you're expelling someone from your firm? That you're doing it for the best interest of the firm, and you are given notice to the partner whom you are expelling, and he should be given a right to be heard. That's what. That's all. No, it should be in the interest of the partnership. He should have served a notice and given the opportunity of being heard. These being heard. Only these factors should be kept in mind. Only these three factors. If these three factors, if I had mentioned, no, out of the 6 marks, 3 marks you would have gotten. Just like that, you would have gotten. And this next point you need not mention. If you want, you can write. If a partner is otherwise expelled, then that expulsion is null and void. If he is expelled without these reasons, without these factors being defined, then in that case it will be null and void. And if all the conditions are not present, the expulsion is not deemed to be bona fide in the interest of the business of the firm. Just like I said, these conditions are not there. These conditions, it is not bona fide as per the interest of the business of the firm. And one more thing, this point you need not write. If you want, you could have written. It may be noted that an act the expulsion of partner does not necessarily result in the dissolution of the firm. When you expel a particular partner, no, it does not lead to dissolution of the firm. And invalid expulsion of the partner does not put an end to the partnership. Even if the partnership is at will, it will be deemed to continue as well. This was a direct question, and you could have scored easily the 6 marks in this. And coming to question 3B. So let's continue with question number 3B. In question number 3B, I'll mark the keywords as I go on reading the question, okay? In this question, what they have asked is Mr. Y, who is age of 21 years. This is one of the important words in the question. And lost his mental balance. He lost his mental balance after his parents died in an accident. So he was left with a grandmother who is of 85 years. She is incapable of walking and she is dependent on him. This is also very important. It will come in handy in the solving the question. So she is dependent upon him. So what happened is Mr. M, there is a neighbor called Mr. M who out of pity supplied food and other necessaries to both of them, to both Mr. Y and his grandmother. Mr. Y and his grandmother, they lived in a house house built by his parents. Mr. M also provided Mr. M also provided grandmother some financial assistance. What happened is Mr. M provided some financial assistance for an emergency medical treatment. He provided some financial assistance. Mr. M, the neighbor. Then after supplying the necessaries to Mr. Y for 4 years, he supplied for 4 years necessaries. So he approached him to pay back rupees 15 lakhs. He approached Mr. Y to pay back 15 lakhs inclusive of 7 lakhs incurred for medical treatment of the lady, that is grandmother. Mr. Y said that he pleaded that he has got his parents' jewelry to sell to a maximum of 4 lakhs, which can be adjusted against his dues. So Mr. M refused and threatened Mr. Y legal suit to be brought against for recovery of the money. Now, this is the question. So, what is the requirement of the question? Requirement of the question is, will Mr. M succeed in filing the suit to recover the money? Elaborate the related provisions. This happening like this. What is the maximum amount of money that can be recovered by Mr. M? And shall the provisions of the above acts also apply to medical treatment given to the grandmother? So this question is based upon this is from the Indian Contract Act that everybody knows that it is from section 68 of the quasi contract. It is from section 68 of the quasi contract. Quasi contract is there, no, in that section 68, from that the question is asked. So while you are reading this question itself, you should understand what the question is saying, and you should read this question at least twice, because some students they tend to get confused and they will not be able to answer this question if they are not alert. They are not like they are not they should be aware, they should be alert when they are reading this question, because there is a few points given in this question which is very confusing, which will make you it will make the question a little bit harder. This question is a little bit tricky, because see, first thing what I will do if this question came is, if Mr. Y is there who is aged 21 years, he lost his mental balance, so he is unstable. He lost his mental balance, is unstable. He's kind of like a lunatic. He was left with his grandmother who is aged 85 years, incapable of walking, and she is dependent upon him. She is also dependent upon him. So these three words are important here. So next, does it say? Mr. M is there, is their neighbor, so he's supplying necessaries. So both of them lived in their parents' house, and the grandmother needs some medical emergency aid. So further financial assistance is provided by him. So later on, after 4 years, Mr. M approached Mr. Y for 15 lakhs, inclusive of 1 lakh for the medical treatment of the grandmother. He said that 4 lakhs is what he has got. Parents jewelry to sell maximum, adjusted against the dues. Okay, now this question I'll tell you, I'll show the answer. Question number 3 is, question 3b is, this is based upon my opinion and suggested answers may vary. As I said in the starting, this is based upon my understanding of the question. This is the answer. Okay, based on the quasi contract, this question is based on quasi contract. So you can just write few sentences about quasi contract, few lines, and explain what is quasi contract. Since the question is for, see, question is for 6 marks that they have asked, so it's better if you explain properly, okay, so that the provision is explained properly, so that you can correlate the provision. You can just write few sentences what is quasi contract. First of all, a valid contract must contain certain essential elements such as offer acceptance, capacity to contract, consideration, frequency. Law implies a promise imposing the obligations on one party and conferring the right in favor of the other, even if there is no offer acceptance and genuine consent or anything like lawful consideration. But in fact neither agreement nor promise, they are not officially entered into contract. That is quasi contract. You will be knowing if you have read what is quasi contract. It's not like a official contract. It's not like a valid contract contains the essential element. This is imposed by the law, obligations on one party and conferring the right to in favor of the another party, where there is no offer acceptance, genuine consent or lawful relation like that. But and in fact there is no agreement or no promise. Such cases are not in contract in stricter sense, but court recognizes them as relations resembling those of the contract and enforces them as if they were the contracts. Hence, the term quasi-contract is resembling a contract. It is resembling that of the contract. Even in the absence of a contract, certain relations, social relations give rise to certain sort of specific obligation to be performed by certain persons. This line you can skip, it's fine. These are known as quasi contracts. They create same obligations as in the case of the regular contract. They create the same obligation as in the regular contract. They create the same obligation, quasi contract. And quasi contracts or constructive contracts rest upon the maxim that no man must go, as I said in the previously, no man must go rich out of the expense of the another person's loss. Okay, like that. This is important, but this is what the case study is based upon. Claim for necessaries supplied to the persons incapable of contracting. Section 68. Like I said, this question is based on Section 68 of the Indian Contract Act 1872. Claim for necessaries supplied to the person incapable of contracting. If a person incapable of entering into contract, this part you can skip. This part you need not write because it is not applicable in this case. So you need not write this part. Okay. If a person incapable of entering into contract is supplied by another person with the necessary suited to his condition in life, the person who has furnished such supplies is entitled to be reimbursed from the property of such incapable person. So what does it say is, if a person is incapable of entering into contract, he is supplied by the another person, the necessary suited for his condition in life, then he is entitled, that person who is supplying necessaries is entitled to be reimbursed from the property of the incapable person. Okay, that's what they are saying in this case study. And for example, you can try this just for understanding purpose. Given this example, A supplies B a lunatic with necessaries suitable to his condition in life. A is entitled to be reimbursed from the B's property. So he is entitled to be reimbursed from the B's property. So B is the lunatic here. So from his property, A is entitled to be reimbursed. Okay. That is the important part which you have to understand. Yeah, that should be present in your answer. And this is also one more important thing, which maybe it's fine if you don't write as well. Supplier must prove not only that he has supplied that the necessaries to the person, but also that they are suitable to his actual requirements at the time of sale and delivery. Just that's all like that. Okay. Now coming to what you'll write in the answer. And the important thing what you will write in your answer is, if male Mr. M succeed in filing the suit to recover the money, you have to say yes, he will succeed because based upon section 68, yes, he can recover his money from the property of Y, from the property of Y, just like it's given A is entitled to be reimbursed from B's property. So the person who is supplying the necessary supplies entitled to be reimbursed from the property of the incapable person. Okay. Then what is the maximum amount of money that can be recovered by Mr. M is given here. This is a little bit controversial according to me, but the ICA answer may vary in this. What I think is from these two lines, I conferred that he has only this much money to give. That's why I told like this. Mr. Y, he pleaded that he has got his parents' jewelry to sell to a maximum of 4 lakhs and it may be adjusted against the dues. That's what they have told. So I think that maximum amount of money that we can recover is 4 lakhs. From these two lines, I inferred that. But you can also infer that you can recover 15 lakhs because maximum amount of money, because for medical treatment he has given 7 lakhs. No, that also you can recover. But that also you can recover. That's what we'll say in the third case study is based on whether from the above act taken also will apply to medical treatment given to a grandmother. Yes, it will apply because I'll explain why. Yes, it will apply because she is dependent upon him. She is, if the in the case study, if they had given that she is independent of Y, then if it was given as she is independent, then it won't apply because since she is dependent on Mr. Y, so, uh, since she is dependent and Mr. M is providing necessary supplies even to her, so he can recover the money which was given for medical treatment. That is rupees 7 lakhs. He can same provision apply. He can recover 7 lakhs as well. So, but maximum amount which you can recover is only 4 lakhs. From these two lines. I've inferred that. But the answer may vary based upon what the ICA will assume. Okay. So this is what the question is like. This is what the question is based upon. This question was a bit tricky, but at least you can score marks in the by writing section 60. At least score out of 6. At least you can score at least 4 marks. You can definitely score out of 6. You can definitely score 4 marks. For that, there is no issue, I think. Now coming to next question number 4. Question number 4, what happens here is this question is question 4a. This question is based upon the unpaid seller. And in my videos, I told even in MTP, RTP, or I don't know if it was in RTP video, I think. I told that questions on unpaid seller, unpaid seller question was there in RTP, I think. Unpaid seller questions are very, very important, I told in RTP, and even the minor case studies are also important, but minor didn't come, at least unpaid seller it came. So, and it came for 6 months, booming 6 months. And I told you specifically that unpaid seller part is very, very important. Now, coming to what was the question was, what are the rights of the unpaid seller in the context to resell the goods under Sale of Goods Act 1930? What are the rights of the unpaid seller in context to resale of the goods? What are those rights? That's what we have to explain. For 6 marks, they are given. 6 points is more than enough. You write 6 rights, you are getting 6 marks. I'll show you the answer as per the ICI. Okay, this is taken from the ICI module itself. Whatever the answers I'm showing here are all from the your ICI module only. I don't take answers from any other source anyways. Okay, now coming to question 4a. In this question, as I said, this question is on right of resale of the unpaid seller, section 54. These lines you need not write, it's fine. If you just write 6 rights, they'll give you mark. They are selling is the right of the resale, no, of the goods of the unpaid seller. The right of resale is a very valuable right given to unpaid seller. In the absence of this right against the goods, in the absence of this right, the unpaid seller's other rights. The unpaid seller had other rights, right, against the goods, that is lien, then the stoppage in transit would be not be of much use, because these rights are only entitled the unpaid seller to retain the goods until paid by the buyer. Like I said, the right of lien and stoppage in the transit would be of no use unless the unpaid seller is given this right to resell the goods, because if he only retains them, such goods, until the buyer pays the money, then the buyer may not pay the money. Coming to next part, this is the important part. This is the right of the resale, right of resale. The unpaid seller can exercise the right to resell the goods under the following condition. He can write is where the goods are of perishable nature. In such a case, the buyer need not be informed about the intention of resale if they are of perishable nature. And one more thing, guys, these wordings which they are given here starting, no, that perishable in nature, where he gives notice to a buyer of his intention to resell the goods. These sentences in the starting, the point heading should be given as given here, should be like that. You can change the formation of the sentence, but the wording should be the same thing, same wordings, and the meaning should come same, because they won't give you marks if the evaluator won't give you marks unless he finds the same sentence, like where the goods are perishable in nature. In such a case, the buyer need not obtain the inform the intention of resale. This inside thing you can write, buyer need not inform his intention to resell where the goods are of perishable nature, where he gives notice to the buyer, where he gives notice to the buyer of his intention to resell the goods, intention to resell the goods. If he gives notice to the, when he gives notice to the buyer, if after receipt of such a notice the buyer still fails within reasonable time to pay or tender the price, the seller may resell the goods. And these 2 points you need not write. I've simply mentioned it here, and this also you need not write. And where unpaid seller who has exercised his right of lien or stoppage in transit of the goods, stoppage in transit, resells the goods. Unpaid seller who has exercised right of lien or stoppage, no, he can resell the goods. The subsequent buyer acquires the goods title thereof as against the original buyer, despite the fact that the notice of the resale has not been given by the seller to the original buyer. In this case, even if there doesn't give the notice, the unpaid seller can sell off the goods, and the person who will buy such goods, subsequent buyer, will get a good title to that goods. Unpaid seller who has exercised his lien of right of lien or stoppage in transit, that time. A resale by a seller where a right of resale is expressly reserved in the contract of sale itself. When they made the contract of sale with the original buyer, that time only the seller had reserved his right to resell the goods if the buyer does not pay in time, on time the money. It is expressly agreed between the seller and the buyer. In that case, the buyer makes a default in the payment of the price. Like I said, if he makes default, the seller can resell the goods to some other person. In such a case, the seller is said to have reserved his right of resale, and he may resell the goods on the buyer's default. Also, it may be noted that the seller is not required to give notice of such resale. He is entitled to recover the damages from the original buyer, even if the no notice of resale is given. He is entitled to recover the damages from the original buyer, even if no notice of resale is given, like I said. Last point I'll discuss right now, where the property in the goods has not passed to a buyer, where the property in the goods has not passed on to the buyer. Property in the goods means goods has not been transferred to the buyer. Sold in delivery of the goods, this right is similar to lien called and is called quasi-lien. As the property in goods has not passed on to the buyer, he has the right to withhold the delivery of the goods. So this much you have to write. And in this, what you could have done is just you could have written only the main headings, like this main headings is there, no, as it is, and main headings as it is you could have by hearted and write a written in your own sentence with the same wordings, similar wordings, and inside thing you could have written on your own with your own understanding. If you had done that, you could have easily scored marks. And this is a direct question they asked in this. Okay. Next, coming to question 4b. 4b, this is based on partnership. And this is the question which I was talking about, which has come in RTP. RTP, no, it has not come in RTP, it has come in MTP. This has come in MTP. This question had come in MTP, not question, concept. Sorry, not the question, but the concept had come in MTP. Those of you who have seen my MTP video, they would have been able to write this answer because the similar concept, similar means same concept has come in MTP. Concept I'm talking about, not the question. Don't confuse it. Not the question. The concept had come in the MTP. That consequences of non-registration of the partnership they had asked. I hope you guys remember from my MTP video. If you have seen my video, that is. Anyways, Indian Partnership Act does not make the registration of the firms compulsory, nor does it impose any penalty for non-registration. In light of the given statement, discuss the consequences of non-registration of the partnership firms in India. Also explain the rights unaffected due to non-registration of the fund. What they have done is here they have asked yeah, they've asked you the question on consequences of non-registration of partnership, but they've added one more question to that. Explain the rights unaffected due to the non-registration of the firms. Due to non-registration, what are those rights which are remains unaffected? The two question also they have posed here. This is also a direct question which you could have answered if you have seen the module. So what is the answer for this is the consequences of non-registration you will all be knowing that a third party can sue and you can't sue a third party and you can't no relief for the part to partners was the claim set off is there that is not available and aggrieved partner cannot sue the another partner as for the legal action. That is the consequences. These are the consequences. You could have written in your own sentences the inside part or inside thing of the headings. The main headings you have to write like this only, and the rights which are unaffected, this part what I was talking about. I'll first discuss this itself. This is the second part of the question. The exceptions, non-registration of the firm does not, however, affect the following rights. So these rights are not affected by the non-registration. Even if there is non-registration of partnership firm, these rights will remain the same. That is rights of the third parties to sue the firm or any partner. That's what they can sue. That is one of the consequences. Third party can sue the firm. That's what this right won't get affected. The right of third party, same thing you would have written even in the rights which is not affected. And rights of the partners to sue for dissolution of the firm. Also, the rights of the partners to sue the firm for dissolution of the firm or for settlement of the accounts of a dissolved firm. Remember, this is the settlement of the accounts of a dissolved firm, not the running firm which is in existence. Of a dissolved firm, of that firm, the settlement of the accounts, or for realization of the property of the dissolved firm. Always remember this is for a dissolved firm. I'm talking about. Okay, remember this is for dissolved firm. And one more thing, the power of the official assignees, receiver of the court, or to receiver of the court to release the property of the insolvent partner and to bring an action. The power of the official assignee or the receiver of the court to release the property of the insolvent partner and to bring an action. Right to sue claim set off if the value of the suit does not exceed rupees 100 in value. The right to sue, that this part is there, no, that no relief to the partners for set off of the claim. In that it was written that if an action is brought against the firm by a third party, then neither the firm nor the partner can claim a set off if the suit value is more than rupees 100. It is there, no, or pursue other proceedings to enforce the rights arising from any contract. This same thing, if it is more than the given, here the right which is unaffected. If it is less than 100, then the right to sue or claim is set off. If the value of the suit is less than 100, in that time that set off, the claim can be set off. Right to sue or set off, claim set off. No, you can claim set off if it is the value of the suit is less than 100. Then next point is right to suit on proceeding instituted by legal representatives or heirs of the deceased partner of the firm for accounts of the firm or to realize the property of the firm. The right to suit on proceeding instituted by legal representatives of the deceased partner accounts of the firm or to realize the property of the firm for the accounts of the firm or to realize the property of the firm. In these 5 points, you would have written, see, the question is for 6 marks. Here it's a bit cut off, but the question is for 6 marks. In the 6 marks, what you would have done is 3 marks right you could have written, and the consequences 3 marks you could have written. So basically, three points if you had written. The consequences of non-registration also exception. That's what we have discussed right now. Rights unaffected. So this is section 69. Consequences of non-registration. Non-registration of partnership gives rise to number of disabilities, and registration of the firm is not compulsory, with the consequences are persuasive in nature for the registration. Persuasive pressure for the registration. That's their persuasive in nature. That's all. Okay. What are the consequences? No suit in civil court by the firm or other co-partners against third party. That's what. No suit in the civil court by the firm or the partners against third party can be made if the firm is non-registered. And as I've already discussed this part in MTP, if you go and see my MTP video, I've already discussed this. I told you also the question comes or the concept from the MTP comes. The concept has come. See, the no suit in civil court by the firm or other co-partners against the third party, no relief of the partners for set off of the claim. Then aggrieved partner cannot bring legal action against the other partner or the firm. As I said, the partner cannot also sue each other. Aggrieved partner cannot go and take the legal action against the other partner or the firm as well. Then the third party can sue for the third party can sue the firm. If you had this is a direct question and you could have written easily this question and you could have scored marks. According to me, this was a very easy question. Okay. Next, coming to 5A. This question is also a little bit tricky. And this question, what happened is, this question is based upon Sale of Goods Act 1930. But the important thing in this question, no, what is this part B there, no. I'll first discuss this one and I'll explain to you why this part, no, this part was important. I'll tell you why. This question was tricky, I agree. Tricky means the conclusion you can at least see in this question because 5A you can figure out the conclusion without even knowing the provision. Just generally you can figure out that. I'll tell you how the conclusion can be drawn even without the provision. I'll tell you. And next thing in 5B, what happened is why I am telling 5B is more important 5B part 1 because I'll tell you I'll first do the 5B part 1 and then we'll go to 5A. Okay. In 5B part 1 sub question, what they have asked is Mr. Anil formed a OPC, one person company on 16th April 2018. This date is important, this year is important, keep it in mind. We formed OPC for manufacturing of electric cars. The turnover of the OPC for financial year ended 31st March 2019 is 2.25 crores. And his friend Sunil wanted to invest in his OPC, so they decided to voluntarily turn the OPC into private limited company. Can Anil do so as per the provisions of the Companies Act? That's what they have asked. And this question, no, in Companies Act in your module, I couldn't find this answer to this question because in this question, no, it is based upon your general understanding of the OPC, I think. I don't know if you, wherever you are coaching, you taken the coaching, if they have told you about this, the answer for this question, I'll tell you. It's not in the module according to me, based upon my opinion, from my understanding of the entire module. It's not there in the module. If you guys know that if it is there in the module, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys knew the answer to this question, it's well and good, very good. You are keeping up with the updated with the MCA knowledge as well. MCA means Ministry of Corporate Affairs. They release, no, that one. Okay. Anyways, coming to this answer for this one, no. Why I'm telling this date is important is because for them to turn this OPC into a private limited company voluntarily, at least the 2 years should have expired from the incorporation of the OPC. From the formation of the OPC, 2 years should have expired. But he formed the OPC on 16th April 2018. So 1819 is what the year, still only 1 year has elapsed from the formation of the OPC. Only 1 year has elapsed. So only 1 year has elapsed, right? So 2 years have not expired. So they can't voluntarily convert into private limited company. But but one more condition is there. Since the turnover of the company is 2.25 crores, so they can convert into voluntarily into private limited company now within 2 months. Within 2 months they can convert now, since the turnover is above 2 crores. Since the turnover is above 2 crores, they can convert into private limited company. What are the condition is, you convert into private limited companies, the paid up share capital should exceed 50 lakhs. Either the paid up share capital should exceed 50 lakhs, or the the turnover, no, turnover should be greater than 2 crores. Turnover should be greater than 2 crores. If it is greater than 2 crores or 50 lakhs paid up share capital, then they can convert into private limited company within 2 months. That's what the answer is. That's what 4 marks is for. Okay, that's what the question is about. So I'll just show you the answer to this question. 5B, no, 5B. Yes, as I said, based on my opinion and session answers may vary, as like I said, and this is according to me it is new and not in the mat. But if you guys know, if any of you found the answer to this question in your mat, it's please let me know. Then voluntary conversion. Voluntary conversion of OPC into private limited or public limited company is not permitted unless 2 years has expired from the date of incorporation. Unless 2 years has expired from the date of incorporation, it cannot do so. It cannot convert the OPC into private limited or public limited company unless 2 years have expired from the date of incorporation. Like I said, 2 years has expired from the date of incorporation. In our case, it was only 2018 April it was formed. So only 1 year has elapsed. Not even 1 year. It should become 18 April to another 18th April. No. He formed it on 16th April. From 16th April 2018 to 16th April 15th April 2019. Till then it will become 1 year. We'll assume, we'll assume for our understanding sake, 1 year has elapsed and one more year is still pending, so 2 years has not elapsed, so they cannot convert into voluntarily convert into private limited company. But however, if the paid up share capital of OPC exceeds 50 lakhs, or this is, or like I said, if its average turnover exceeds 2 crores, then OPC can convert itself into private limited company within 2 months. If this much you should have written, and you can tell here, here Anil can do so as per the provisions of the Companies Act as explained above. This much if you had written, 4 marks was yours. That's what the answer should have been. This I have written, generally is voluntary conversion. OPC has to intimate the registrar ROC inform INC 5 within 60 days. 5B part 2. Explain the listed company and unlisted company as per the provisions of Companies Act. For 2 marks they have asked. So very simple. Unlisted company is which company which is not listed. Unlisted companies means what? That company which is listed in the SEBI, like recognized stock exchange of the SEBI, then that is a listed company. That's what. And they have listed, the companies have listed their securities in the recognized stock exchange of the Securities Exchange Board of India. That much you should have recognized stock exchange. That is enough. That's what you have written. See, listed company as per section 252 of Companies Act is a company which has any of its securities listed on the recognized stock exchange. That is what listed company is. But one important thing is provide such class of companies who have listed or intending to list, which have listed or intended to list such class of securities, may be prescribed in consultation with the SEBI, shall not be considered as listed companies. They will not be considered listed companies if they have not listed their securities or are intended to list such class of securities. they they're still in the process of listing. No, those companies, no, shall not be considered as listed companies. And unlisted companies are those which are other than listed companies. 2 marks is yours. Coming to 5A, this was the question. It was a bit tricky. This 5A, no, it is based upon caveat emptor. It is given in the question itself. Those person who has studied caveat emptor in depth, those who have understood the concept of caveat emptor in Sale of Goods Act can answer this question. Otherwise, they would have done mistake. That much I can tell. But the conclusion you can tell even without knowing the provision. How I'll teach you right now, and I'll mark the important keywords in the question as I go on reading it. What they have given in this question is there is Mr. K who visited Makrana Marbles for purchase of the marbles and tiles for his newly built house. So he asked the owner of that house, owner of the shop. He asked the owner of the shop, Mr. J, to visit his house prior to supply so that he can clearly ascertain the correct mix and measurements of the marble and tiles. To ascertain the measurement of the marbles and clearly ascertain the correct mix, for that he called the person, the owner of the shop, to visit his house prior to that. So Mr. J also agreed and visited the house. On the next day he visited, inspected the rooms in the first floor and the car parking space. But Mr. K insisted him to visit the second floor as well because construction pattern was different. Second floor they had different kind of pattern compared to the first floor. The first floor, suppose the kitchen and room and living was there. In second floor there was, suppose there were only 2 rooms are there. Pattern and common area of all was there. The different pattern was there. So Mr. J ignored the above suggestion. This is one of the important keywords, key sentences in this entire question. Ignored the above suggestion. The answer your first question, what the first requirement of the question will be answered by this one. Then Mr. J supplied 146 blocks of marble as per the size of the rooms and 16 blocks of tiles with a word of caution. This is also important, with a word of caution. The tiles can bear only reasonable weight. Marble and tiles were successfully laid except on the second floor due to different size of the marble, which they didn't send because he didn't take the measurement for second floor. Mr. J ignored the suggestion of Mr. K. So the tails fitted in the parking space also got damaged due to the weight of the vehicle came for unloading of the cement bags. So the tails which they have put in parking space, no, they got damaged because of a heavyweight vehicle which had come there. But Mr. K asked Mr. J for replacement of the marble and tails, to which Mr. J refused, taking a plea that the marble was as per the measurement and it was unsafe to fit the tails in the parking area. It cannot take heavy load. So that's what the question is. Requirement of the question. What is they have asked for in the question? Requirement of the case is, can Mr. J refuse to replace the marble with reference to doctrine of QA? I won't even suppose I don't know the provision. Okay, assuming I don't even know the provision, the doctrine of QA. Can I tell the conclusion? Yes, I can tell. And remember, they have asked enlist the duties of both Mr. K and Mr. J. Both the Mr. K and J's buyer and seller's duties you have to mention, which is given in KVA tempter, the duties of the buyer and seller. Okay. KVA tempter means only let the buyer be beware. Oh, I hope you know what KVA tempter means. But anyways, suppose I don't know the provision. Okay. Can I still answer this question? Yes, I can. See, can Mr. J refuse to replace the marble with reference to a doctrine they have asked? Can Mr. J refuse to replace the marble if we take only that much? What happened is Mr. J ignored the above suggestion that Mr. K told him to go and visit the second floor and to take the measurement so that he can send the marble for second floor. But he ignored the above suggestion and he did not go, Mr. J. So he sent a wrong measurement. Based on the wrong measurement, his own measurement, he sent a 146 block of marble size as per the rooms in the first floor. But second floor did not even take the measurement. He sent it on his own. So what happened is that for second floor they do different sizes of the marble. They did not fit the marble only. So now he is asking for replacement of the marble. So can Mr. J refuse to replace the marble? No, he cannot refuse the Mr. K to replace the marble because he had even asked Mr. J to go and check the second floor for the measurement of the size of the marble because the pattern was different in that second floor. So now we can't, Mr. J can't refuse to replace the marble. So conclusion here, there you have the conclusion part, even without knowing the provision. And second one, whether the replacement of the damaged tiles be imposed on Makrana marbles, explain. Whether replacement of the damaged tiles be imposed. They cannot impose. Why, I'll tell you. Because when Mr. J supplied the 16 boxes of tiles, no, he had given a word of caution that the tiles can bear only reasonable weight. But still, the owner, Mr. K, he went and put the tiles in the parking space. The tails fitted in the parking space got damaged, that's why. He had given a word of caution. So it was unsafe to fit the tails at the parking area as it cannot take heavy load. So in this case, where replacement of damaged tails be imposed on Makrana, no, they cannot because he had given the warning, word of warning that he had given. So there you have both the answers. Both the answers for the requirement of both the question I have answered. Even without knowing the provision, I have answered you. If you read twice, if even in this case study, you have to be alert for those lines, those wordings which are important, and you have to check what is the requirement of the question. Always remember this. You have to see what is the important the word, keywords in the question, and what is the requirement of the question, and what provision they are trying to refer. To think in that direction, then you can easily answer the case study given. Even if suppose this case study was even tougher without even knowing the provision, even if without knowing the provision, I told the answer to the both the requirements of the question. Both these questions I told the answer even without knowing the provision. For 6 marks, this much, how much marks? This is for 6 marks. For writing the conclusion, you would have given you 2 marks at least. At least 2 marks you would have gotten out of this question, even without knowing the provision, and you could have easily written the conclusion if you have answered this question. Anyways, now coming to the provision, it is based on KVA tempter, doctrine of KVA tempter. I hope you know what doctrine of KVA tempter as per the Sale of Goods Act. And one more thing, guys, this is based on my opinion and suggested answers may vary. Answer what the ICI will do is they will adjust the answer as per the requirement of the question. They will do that adjustment. In this case, in case of sale of the goods, doctrine of KVA tempter means just explain in since the question is for 6 marks. No, you have to explain a little bit what they have asked. And one more thing, the people know they would skip this. You have to read it properly, the requirement of the question. Even this part is important. Enlist the duties of both Mr. K and Mr. J. Duties of both the buyer. This part of the question, can Mr. J refuse to replace the marble and say no? Then only one half of the question is you have done. But the other half of the question you would have left and you would have forgotten. You would have not read the question fully. You just write this much like in case of sale of the goods, the doctrine of KVA tempter means let the buyer be beware. Let the buyer be beware. That's what the KVA tempter means. Let the buyer be beware. Okay, the goods turn out to be defective or do not serve its purpose, or if it depends, if the goods turn out to be defective or do not serve its purpose, if it depends on his own skill and judgment, then the buyer cannot blame the seller for he cannot blame the seller for the defective goods. If it is he has selected on his own judgment, and if they do not serve the purpose, or if it is defective, if it depended on his own skill, then the buyer cannot hold the seller responsible. The rule of KVA tempter laid down in section 16 states that subject to the provisions of this act or any other law for timing and force, there is no implied warranty or condition as to the quality or fitness of for a particular purpose of the goods supplied under a contract of sale. This sentence, it's fine if you couldn't write, but what they're telling in this one, no. As per the KVA tempter, no. There is no implied warranty or condition as to the quality or fitness for any particular purpose or the goods supplied under the contract of sale are the conditions to be satisfied. If the buyer had made it known to the seller the purpose of his purchase, and the buyer relied on the seller's skill and judgment and the seller's business to supply the goods of that description. following are the conditions to be satisfied. If for rule of KVA tempter to be applied, following conditions are to be satisfied. The buyer had made it known to the seller the purpose of his purchase. In our given case study, the buyer, Mr. K, had let the Mr. J, the owner of the Makrana marbles and tails, the owner of the tails marbles, known that what is the purpose for which he is buying for this new house, the marble, and the buyer relied on the seller's skill and judgment. In our case also, the buyer told Mr. J to visit his house to take the measurements to check what is the correct mix of the marble and tails. For that, he had called the owner of the shop to visit and inspect the house. So the buyer relied on the seller's skill and judgment in our case also. A seller's business to supply the goods of the description. Here the Macarona marbles and tails, the title of the shop itself says he is selling the goods of that particular description, the marbles and tails. Here it's there no. Macarona marbles. He is selling that of particular description. So basically all the conditions are satisfied. Okay. Buyer had made known to the seller the purpose of his purchase, and he had relied on the seller's judgment and skill and seller's business to supply the goods of the description. So now this is the important part which is given as in the requirement of the part one of the question. The duty of the buyer and the seller. Duty of the buyer, duty of the seller. According to doctrine of KVA tempter, in case of duty of the buyer, in case of sale of the goods, let the buyer beware. Let the buyer beware. When the seller displays their goods in the open market, it is for the buyers to make the proper selection or choice of the goods. If the goods turns out to be defective, we cannot hold the seller liable. In when the seller no if the seller is displaying his goods in the open market and buyer makes the selection based upon his judgment and is using his skills, then he cannot blame the, as I said in the here, he cannot hold the seller responsible in such a case. That's what they have written here. That is the duty of the buyer. The seller is no way responsible for the bad selection of the buyer. The seller is not bound to disclose the defects in the goods which he is selling. He is not bound to disclose the defects in the goods which he is displaying. That's what the duty of the buyer. Okay. Now the duty of the seller is following exceptions to a caveat emptor, the duties of the seller. It is the exception to the rule of caveat emptor. The fitness as to quality or use, this is the duty of the seller. As fitness as to quality or the use, this is what is this is what is applicable in our case study. This first one, the duty of the seller, fitness as to quality or use. This remaining what they have given, no, this is not applicable in our case study. The goods purchased under patent or brand name, goods sold by description, simply have given for purpose of making you understanding. Okay. uh, the goods sold by description, goods of merchantable quality, sale by sample, goods by sample as well, description, trade usage on seller actively conceals the defect, is guilty of fraud or is guilty of fraud. What you should have written in your answer, this is what you should have written in your answer. Now we'll discuss the question requirement of the question. What is the mark? So you have to write in the instant case. You have to explain the case study, all correlating that with the provision. Correlating that with the provision. This provision which I mentioned. No, correlate this provision with the case study. And you have to write in the instant case. Then you have to come to the conclusion. So question number 6. In question number 6, what they have asked is the difference between innovation and alteration. This question also, it's direct question, and this is a direct question, and this is also a direct question. All these three questions are direct questions, and these are very very easy questions. You could have scored 12 marks easily out of this question 6. That's why I tell start with question 6, then question 5, question 4, question 3, like that. Okay. So difference between innovation and alteration we have to write. For 5 marks they have asked. For 5 marks they have asked. Okay. Then I'll show the answer. We'll go one by one. Effect of innovation and effect of alteration of the contract. They've given it for 5 marks, right? That's why you have to like explain it little bit more for 5 marks. It means the parties to a contract may substitute a new contract for the old one. And in case of novation, the old contract need not be performed. It is discharged and need not be performed. A old contract in the novation, you substituted with a new contract. And in this case where the contract is in existence, some new contract is substituted for it, either by the same parties or the parties may get also different parties, the consideration mutually being the discharge of the old contract. So novation can take place only by the mutual agreement between the parties. So novation, what you should write, novation, it will substitute, it may substitute new contract, may substitute new contract, the old contract will discharge, new it did not be performed, and the contract in existence, being contract in existence, some new contract is substituted for either for same parts or for different parts, and the consideration mutually being agreed. Mutually being the discharge of consideration being mutually discharge of the old contract. And novation can take place only by the mutual agreement between the parties. Novation can take place only by mutual agreement with the parties. That's what you should have written. This is what you should have written for novation. For alteration, alteration means to alter. That is, suppose original contract is there, they will alter that. In case of the alteration, what happens is they will alter the parts of the contract where the parties to the contract agree to alter it. The original contract is rescinded. In such a case, original contract is rescinded. You should use terms like rescinded. The original contract is rescinded means cancelled. Original contract is cancelled. And the result is it need not be performed, just like novation, it need not be performed. So it contract is also discharged by alteration. It is discharged by alteration. Then also, then next is the contract may also be altered by mutual agreement, and it will have the alteration may have the effect of substituting the new contract for old one. It is almost similar to novation. It is almost similar to novation. Anyways, that's what you should have written in your answer. You should have written for novation this, and for alteration this, that the parties should agree to alterate. Original contract is rescinded. It need not be performed. The contract is also discharged by alteration, and it is altered by mutual agreement, just like here it is only by mutual agreement it is altered, but the parties will remain same in the alteration. The parties involved will remain same. So the differences, these are the two differences between the novation and alteration. Novation means substitution of an existing contract with the new one. Novation, like I said, new. Innovation, innovation, N means new. This is a substitution of the existing contract with the new one. Substitution of the existing contract with new one. Novation can be made by changing the terms of the contract, or there may be change in the contracting parties. It can be done by changing the terms of the contract or by changing the contracting parties. Or innovation can be done. Innovation, what happens? I said new contract. No, new contract means the parties will also change. It can be done with the existing parties or with the new parties, and the terms of the contract may be altered by the mutual agreement by the contracting parties. Can be altered by mutual agreement by the contracting parties. Can be altered by mutual agreement, but the parties to the contract will remain the same. Parties to the contract will remain the same in the alteration. Parties to the contract will remain the same in the alteration. The parties will remain the same, but in the alteration, terms of the contract may be altered by mutual agreement by contracting parties. That's what will happen. This is what you should have written. Innovation, what happens, and in alteration, what happens. Innovation means new. Alteration means old only, but some terms and conditions are altered by the mutual consent of the parties, and the parties will remain the same. In case of novation, altogether a substitution of new contract in place of the old one. Novation means, like I said, substitution of new with the old. Alteration is not essential for substitution of the new contract in place of the old. There is maybe a change in some of the terms and conditions of the original agreement. This is what you should have written in your answer. If you have written this, the value it will give you marks. Okay, this much you should have written. Based on my understanding, this is what you should have written. Okay. Next, coming to question number B, B part of question 6B, the difference between the partnership and co-ownership. What is the difference between the partnership and co-ownership? Direct question from partnership. Direct question from partnership. They have asked for 4 marks. They have asked 4 differences. Even without knowing, you could have written this. Partnership and co-ownership differences. The partnership, what happens? They are the agents. The partners are agent. In co-ownership, they are not agents. Partnership happens by agreement. Here there is no agreement. This is by the due to inheritance or due to agreement. This is due to inheritance, co-ownership, and the transfer of the And transfer of the interest, no transfer of the interest in the partnership, it can happen only with the consent of the majority of the partners. Co-ownership, it can transfer the ownership without the consent of the other owners. Like that you could have written, and 4 marks, you should write 4 points, which is given in your book. This I have taken as like it is given in your module. Like first, we did about formation, it arises out of the contract, like I said, agreement, express or implied, and may arise either from the agreement or by the operation of the law, like such as by inheritance, like I said, co-ownership. An implied agency, the partner is an agent of the other partners. Co-owner is not the agent of the other co-owners. What See, this what I've given, no, this italics, this words in italics, is not an agent of the other co-owners. These italics are the important keywords in your answer, which should be there. That it arises out of contract. Here it may arise out of agreement by operation of law or by inheritance. Here the partner is an agent of other partner. Co-owner is not the agent of the other co-owner. And the nature of interest, there is a community of the interest. That means they share the profits and losses, must have to be shared, and the co-ownership does not necessarily mean necessarily involve sharing of profits and losses. Transfer of the interest, transfer of interest, the share in the partnership is transferred only by the consent of the other partners. The the transfer of the interest is there, no share in the partnership is transferred only with the consent of the other partners. Like I said, it can be transferred only with the consent of the other partners. I told you no just now. Then co-owner may transfer his interest or rights in the property without the consent of the other co-owner. You can transfer without the consent of. If you had written these 4 points, you will get the marks. If you have written these 4 points, you'll get the marks. Last sub question of the last question. Mike LLC incorporated in Singapore, having an office in Pune, India. The important part of the question here is, this is the important part in this question, that they have an office in Pune, India, and they are incorporated in Singapore. They are incorporated in Singapore, but they have an office in Pune, India. Analyze whether Mike LLC could be called a foreign company as per the provisions of Companies Act 2013. Explain the meaning of foreign company. 2 subsection 42 of the Companies Act 2013, a foreign company is a company or a body corporate which is incorporated outside India, but it has a place of business in India, whether physically or by implied through agency or by any other mode, or technological mode, by any other mode, and a place of business in India. And a place of business in India is called a foreign company. And here in this case, Mike LLC, this company is incorporated outside India, just like in the definition, and they have office in Pune, India. So this is a foreign company. You should write Mike LLC would be called a foreign company as per the provisions of Company Act 2013 as per section 2 subsection 42. And also explain the meaning of foreign company. That's what I said. The meaning of foreign company only explain. I'll show you here. Wait. See, foreign companies section 2 subsection 42. The company or a body corporate incorporated outside India. This is what you should write. This the entire definition you should write as it is given. Definitely remember, in law definitions you have to write as it is given in the law. You cannot change the definition based upon your own understanding. Okay, the definition should be as given in the law. The technical word should be like this. It means a company or a body corporate incorporated outside India, which has a place of business. Like I said, which has a place of business in India, whether by itself or through an agent, physically or through electronic mode, and conducts any business activity in India or in any other manner. Conducts business activity in India, in any other manner. And this part, no, this this part of the solution is very important, because for this also carries marks. This is the conclusion. Yes, Mike LLC is a foreign in company as per the provision, that is Companies Act 2013. It is a foreign company. You should have written. For this conclusion, marks will be there. Anyways, you would have written, because they have has no whether Mike LLC would be called foreign company. Yes, as per the above provision. For that, you would have gotten 3 marks. So I have discussed the entire paper now. And if you ask me, this paper was neither easy nor tough, like many people are saying. This paper was average. It was average, like as like you guys, I can tell this was average. As you are saying, this paper is average. because there were some of the questions which is not those questions which the students tend to skip, and also there were some of the questions which are directly from the module. There are direct questions, and some of the case studies which is based upon the important concepts which the student usually reads. That also there was. So now, if suppose if this question paper, if I had solved, no, if I had gotten this paper, what I would start with is, this is how you should have done in your paper. If you have in this paper, if I had gotten, what I would do is, this is what I would do. First, I would do question number 2, question number 4, then question number 6. Three questions would have carried, each carried 12 marks, so I would have answered for 36 marks already. And the two very easy questions, you could have easily scored 30 plus out of 36 if you had studied properly and understood. Even if you can't score 30 plus, at least 25 plus you could have scored. One is also, it was very easy, except this question, it was bit tricky, and question C was easy. So taking question 1 plus question 1 into consideration, you should have written already for 48 marks. This is how I would have written. First, I would have written question 246, and in the middle of the, like in after 1 hour, I would have written question 1, then question 46. Then in question number 3, question number 3 and question number 5, I had to choose. No, question number 3 and question number 5. What I would do is, in question number 3, what they have asked is one direct question they have asked for 6 marks. Right, direct question. And this is based on quasi contracts. This was also very little bit tricky, but not as tricky as question number 5. Question number 5, I know this question most of you would have answered because it is easy. But what happens is, some of the students would not be able to answer this question, the OPC which is given here, because they wouldn't be knowing all these limits. So they would have lost 4 marks here, and they would have written this listed and listed differences for 2 marks. If they had read properly, they would have written this 2 marks, this 4 marks. If some people, they don't read even that, so I would have written, instead of question 5, I would have written question 4 here. No, instead of question 5, I would have written question 3. That's what. No, in between question 3 and 5, I would have written question 3. Since partnership direct question 6 marks, I would have scored for expulsion, and this at least out of 6, I would have definitely scored 4 marks. So I would have written that, and with question 1, I would have written question 3 and would have left question 5 in choice. But how you have done is already you have done, so we can't change what you have done now. Just analyze what you have done based on this review. Check what are the answers which you have written, then compare and contrast. Okay, and check where you have went wrong. And I'm not saying this review is completely purely like correct, or it is as per the ICI, because this review is purely based on my own analysis, my own understanding of the questions, and most of the questions they have asked directly, those questions is the answer is same. Sense, I will rate it. I'll tell you how it was in general sense. Like this paper was average or little bit above average for foundation students. They would have found it because the question are asked from those areas, those parts of the chapter which is generally skipped by the students. So in that sense, we can say the question was a little bit tough. Not tough, above average, I can say. So anyways, thank you guys. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And for writing your exams in June 23rd and December 23rd, please see how the questions are asked, what concepts they are asking, so you can prepare yourselves better for your coming exams, and you are able to understand the things better.